be a champion in any sport, it is important that you perform with good fundamental technique. Over the next 40 minutes, we are going to show you effective sculling technique as demonstrated by many of rowing's top stars. Athens Olympic champion Olaf Tufte from Norway, Katrine Ruschhaus-Dombrowski from Germany, World and Olympic rowers Rebecca Romero from Great Britain, Akil Abdullah from the USA, Leonardo Pettinari from Italy, Ilia Luini from Italy, Merit van Upen from the Netherlands and Daniela Reimer from Germany, and Sam Lynch and Geroyd Towie from Ireland. What you are going to see are these stars of rowing in training, mostly at low intensity steady state pressure, working on many of the aspects that have made them into highly effective scullers. You will not necessarily see textbook sculling, but you will see the athletes in action working on perfecting their sculling stroke. This DVD will provide you with some of the most up-to-date thoughts on effective sculling technique, including a detailed analysis of all parts of the sculling stroke. We will analyze the stroke in 6 chapters: the hands and grip, the extraction of the blade, the recovery and preparation phase, the entry and catch, the drive and propulsion phase, blade work, and finally we will show you a series of technical exercises that some of our rowing stars use to help them become effective scullers. This will be followed by a very basic summary of the important components of the sculling stroke. An essential part of sculling is the position of the hand on the handle of the scull. When gripping the oar, the hand must be placed so that the wrist remains flat and the forearm linear with the wrist when applying pressure onto the handle at the beginning of the drive phase of the stroke. The fingers act as a hook at this point, and along with a relaxed arm and shoulder system, are simply acting as a transmitter of energy onto the handle from the powerful leg drive. Similar to many other sports that utilize a handle, such as golf, baseball, and hockey, the grip and the positioning of your hands has a significant impact on your ability to transmit energy. The grip on the handle must be relaxed, and the sculler must be able to feel the weight of the oar in the hands to control balance in the boat. The hands provide 3 basic functions during the sculling stroke. They provide a connection for power transmission onto the blade. They are the main contributors to balance in the boat. And they control the blade and the ability to enter and exit from the water properly. Take a few moments here to see how Rebecca uses her hands to balance the boat. During this sequence, notice how Katrine's hands follow a linear path parallel to the water both on the drive phase and a slightly lower level on the recovery. Before we get into the next chapters, we will show you a series of shots of the hands of Olympic gold medalist Katrine Ruschhaus-Dombrowski. The first shot shows Katrine at the middle of the drive phase with her blade at 90 degrees to the boat. Her left hand is slightly in front of and above her right hand. When sculling, it is normal to have one swivel rigged slightly higher than the other swivel, in this case the left swivel, which allows the boat to stay balanced when making the crossover of the hands, such as Katrine is doing here. The wrists are flat, and the grip on the handle is in the fingers. At the finished position, the forearms are parallel to the water surface, the wrists still flat prior to extraction, and the elbows drawn through the body. The hands are essentially level with each other, and with spacing between the 2 hands. Katrine's spacing is wider than you might find in other top rowers, but for her is effective. Both hands have finished at the same time and location in front of the body. To get to this position from the previous position, Katrine has had to draw in her left hand slightly faster than her right. At this point, Katrine's thumbs are applying a small amount of lateral pressure at the end of the handle to keep the button against the swivel. During the recovery, similar to the drive phase, you see the left hand slightly higher than the right, but with little vertical separation between them. At this point, Katrine is balancing the boat by applying downward pressure on both handles so that the boat travels along the keel while keeping the blades above the water surface. The weight of the handle is felt in the fingers, and balance of the boat is controlled with small movements of the hands and not movement of the body from side to side. Similar to a high wire walker, balance of the boat comes from subtle manipulations of the hands and minimal movement of the body and knees from side to side. When the left swivel is rigged slightly higher than the right, the left hand during the initial part of the recovery will feel slightly more weight on it to keep the boat in balance. Here at the entry position, just prior to the blades entering the water, the forearm, wrist, and hand position is linear, the thumb is still connected to the end of the handle, and the shoulder and arm system relaxed. Both hands are at the same height and are extended in a nice wide arc out to the entry position. To enter the water from here, all that is required is a slight raising of the hands. Once the blade is entered, the hands are perfectly placed to transfer the force generated from the push of the legs onto the end of the blade. Take a moment to watch Katrine's hands throughout the full stroke cycle. Removing the blade from the water cleanly and efficiently is a primary focus in sculling. A good, clean extraction will keep the boat running at maximum velocity. You can see in this slow motion and rewind sequence the extraction of Olympic champion Olaf Tufte. During the dry phase of the stroke, a pocket develops behind the blade. The extraction has to happen while this hollow is still open. Rowing square blades, such as shown here, can help scullers develop the ability to extract from the water cleanly. The movement begins with a tap down of the handles with the hands as the sculler has reached the finished position. The blade stays buried in the water until this moment, and the tap down of the hands will release the blade from the water cleanly. Good scullers are able to feel how their body movement impacts the velocity of the boat. During the recovery phase, the primary concern is to minimize any loss of boat speed while the blades are out of the water. Developing this feel for how your movements affect the run of the boat, particularly during the recovery, is an essential part of developing into an effective sculler. The recovery phase starts after the extraction of the blade from the water and with the hands moving away from the body at a slightly lower level than they came in at. It is quite normal to have some movement of the wrist just after extracting the blade from the water and putting the blade on the feather. If the wrist is involved, however, it must be ensured that the handles are tapped down with the hands so that the blade is extracted cleanly and the blades stay off the water surface. As the hands extend away from the body, the wrist should return to flat with the hands remaining relaxed. Both hands move away at the same time and with the same speed that they came into the body, with the left hand traveling slightly faster at the beginning to allow for room as the hands cross over. Following the initial movement of the hands, the trunk starts its pivot towards the stern of the boat, while the hands and arms keep extending out. The legs are still flat at this point, and the shoulders and hands are relaxed. At this point, the legs start to rise and the body keeps moving towards the forward catch angle. The body catch angle should be set very early in the recovery. This gives a much better chance to enter the blade at the correct time by minimizing any last second movements. At this point, the body is set, the legs compress further up the slide until the shins are vertical and the hands have extended away from the body to the entry position. Getting close to the catch, the sculler feels a light compression of the feet onto the footboard and the lower chest compressing onto the legs. The upper body and shoulder arm system is relaxed. The arrows here indicate how far Katrine's seat has moved sternward of the swivel. This is known as the work through and determines the forward arc the sculler is able to make. Let's talk for a moment about squaring of the blade. Squaring of the blade on the recovery should happen so that it is completely squared and ready just before the blade is ready to enter the water. To Depending on how far your reach is, squaring of the blade can happen from when the hands cross the ankles or until the hands have just started to leave the confines of the boat, such as Katrine is doing here. Most importantly, the hands, when squaring the blade, should travel in a slightly upward pattern, thereby keeping the lower edge of the blade close to the water surface. Rhythm during the recovery is achieved when the athlete moves with the boat. Effective rhythm allows the rower to minimize deceleration between drives. This is what is described as feeling the boat run out between strokes. Remember that as the rower slides to the stern, the boat is sliding underneath to the bow. The relative speeds of the body and the boat beneath set up this rhythm. As we have seen and heard in the previous chapter, the recovery phase of the stroke is used as the preparation for proper entry of the blade into the water. The entry of the blade is the link between the recovery phase and the drive or propulsion phase. The stroke cycle is a smooth, continuous motion, and therefore the entry of the blade into the water and the change in direction of the sculler should be a smooth transition to allow for maximum boat run. Blade entry has to correspond very closely with the change in direction of the seat. Olympic champion Olaf Tufte demonstrates here the timing of the entry with the changing of direction of the seat. This timing of the entry and the coordination of change of direction of the seat is perhaps the most challenging part of the sculling stroke. Immediately after the blade enters, power must be applied through the legs by a strong push on the footboard. This is known as the catch and is controlled by the legs. The challenge is to ensure that the push does not occur before the blade has had a chance to lock onto the water. Entering the blade into the water can act as a braking motion on the boat. The key to an effective catch is to minimize the braking action when the blade enters. Slamming of the blade into the water will severely impact the run of the boat by introducing excessive vertical motion in the bow and stern of the boat. The blade must be placed into the water with precision so as not to interfere with the run of the boat. Watching the movement of the stern and bow can tell a lot about the efficiency of the catch. You can see from this slow motion series that the movement of the hands to lock the blade is fairly minimal and that the lock of the blade happens from pushing of the legs against a strong lower back system. The chest remains connected to the legs throughout the initial part of the drive. This sequence of the Irish lightweight double clearly shows the hand and arm action required to enter the blade. Only a small upward movement of the hands anchors the blade and allows effective lock-on with the push of the legs. The width of the hands at this position is also important. To be effective in sculling, the sculler must go through approximately 110 degrees of arc. The spacing of the hands at the catch indicates how much arc the sculler can generate on the stern side of the swivel and pin. The blade must be entered when the sculler is at this maximum width for effectiveness. The arrows indicate the width the Irish double generate at the catch. The drive and propulsion phase begins with the initial push of the legs after the blade has entered into the water. The push of the legs drives the body back towards the bow of the boat while the strong core muscular system holds against the legs. When the catch is made properly, the legs start off with an immediate load which is noticeable in the speed of the legs at that point. Legs that move very fast just after the catch usually means that the timing of the leg push has been too early. You can see by the speed of Olaf's legs here how effective they are. The body, shoulders and arms act as a conduit to allow the power generated by the leg push to be transferred onto the handle and ultimately the blade. The upper body must remain relaxed to allow this flow of energy to happen. You can see in this clip of a keel with his shirt off the use of the muscle system during the drive. You can see from this series of still photos when the blade is perpendicular to the boat how each of these top athletes uses their entire body to put maximum load on the blade. In each case, you can see air under the legs and get a sensation of their entire body hanging off the blade. Having all three major muscle groups, the legs, the back, and the shoulder-arm system, working together at this point generates increasing velocity on the blade as the handle gets closer to the body. This acceleration of the handle means the boat is accelerating, which gives rhythm to the stroke. Even when paddling under low pressure, this acceleration should be maintained. We are now going to look at the rhythm of this Irish double. The rhythm, which we referred to earlier, relates to the changes in speed and direction we see during the stroke cycle. As opposed to ratio, which is the amount of time taken to go up the slide relative to the time taken to go down the slide, rhythm refers to the ability to control the changes in speed and direction occurring during the sculling stroke. During the drive phase, a strong rhythm is created by the blade locking onto or catching the water at the moment of entry. The action of locking the blade into the water melts together at that point the athlete and boat. From that point on, both athlete and boat are levered past the point or entry of the blade. You can clearly see from this Irish double the acceleration of the handle which creates their rhythm. We are now going to see a series of high-intensity, high-rate pieces by some of our athletes. You will note a significantly higher tempo or stroke rate during these pieces, but what you will notice is the ability of the athletes to maintain their rhythm. Since the blade locking onto the water is what moves the boat and ultimately the athlete down the river, lake, or rowing course, its importance cannot be overlooked. During the entry, the blade must lock in at the furthest point of extension of the arms. It must enter cleanly, making a small splash on either side of the blade. The placing of the blade into the water happens before it starts moving towards the stern of the boat, and just as the athlete is changing direction on the slide. After entry, the blade must go to the right depth so that the blade is fully submerged while keeping as much of the loom out of the water as possible. This depth must be maintained until the blade is extracted from the water. Too deep a blade adds unwanted resistance and too shallow a blade loses power. The extraction must be clean and quick. Just after the blade is removed from the water, the boat is moving at its fastest velocity, so it is important to remove the blade cleanly so as not to lose any of this speed. During the recovery, the blade must be kept high enough off the water so that they do not scrape the water surface. This can be trained by doing some square blade rowing as seen here, and also by being conscious of the blade weight in your hands at all times during the recovery. In this chapter, you are about to see a series of technical exercises to help master parts of the sculling stroke. There are stationary and dynamic exercises to work on the hands, blade work, the entry and the catch, and for overall competence in the boat. Follow the principles outlined in our previous chapters, practice, and master each part of the stroke, and you are on your way to becoming an effective sculler. is a basic recap of the skills of sculling done through a series of line drawings. Finish and release. The forearms and hands move the blade handles down and around in a fluid and continuous manner, releasing the blades from the water. Recovery. The hands move away from the body at a constant speed, with body following and the legs flat. Continuing the recovery, at the beginning of the slide, the hands are past the knees, and there is early body angle preparation. Further along the slide on the recovery, the slide is at halfway, the body is at the forward catch angle, and the arms are still extending. Just before the entry, the hands are rising to enter the blade, the body movement is finished, and there's concentration on a direct entry into the water. Just at the entry, the blade is locked into the water and the legs have initiated the drive. In the initial part of the drive, there is almost no change in body position, the body is hanging on the blade and foot stretcher, and the work is done through the legs and core. Halfway through the drive, the upper body opens up and the body starts to uncoil in a natural way. Further through the drive, the legs, back and arms are working together to draw the handle powerfully into the body. Drive, the body motion is finished and the arms and shoulders finish off the stroke. We're back to where we started. The continuous stroke cycle starts again. Following is a selection of material we were unable to slide into the previous chapters, but thought you may enjoy watching.